everybody. This is Chris McCabe of e-commerce. Chris, another video on Amazon suspension trends. Kind of an ugly one today that I want to disabuse people of this notion that they have a stronger appeal if it goes to Amazon legal teams, even for a non-legal based suspension cause. Amazon policies don't necessarily involve interpretation of US laws. They involve policy interpretations. I understand numerous lawyers out there kind of want to blur those lines so that they can make it seem like you need a lawyer for everything. 90% of the time you don't. You need to understand Amazon policy interpretation. You need to understand detail page rules. Let's say you're caught violating listing policies or ASIN variation creation rules. I've pretty much never talked to a lawyer who understood variation creation properly. Believe me, we've seen their appeals. They're all off topic and they demonstrate an ignorance and a lack of knowledge of ASIN variation creation. But beyond just that one issue, I want people to understand that if a hard copy letter, like a snail mail letter, gets sent to Amazon and they find that and it's annotated on your account, it may stay with legal teams until they've read that letter, which might be way down the road. Most suspensions that we work on, people need their account back right away or today or tomorrow. They can't wait for weeks or months to pass while legal maybe looks at a letter that maybe had to do with their suspension. A lot of time that legal team look at these appeals, they have to, time has already gone by and the legal team took a long time to read it. Then they delegate it elsewhere. So then you lose that time. What if they don't delegate it appropriately? What if it winds up being examined as a catalog issue when it was really a restricted product issue? You're just opening the door to more mishandling mistakes within Amazon. And you just have to take with a grain of salt anytime an attorney comes to you with a legal argument where there are no legal issues present. They're just trying to steer you in the direction of understanding that Amazon legal is the place to go, or the top place to go, or the stronger place to go, the chance to get the best hearing on your case. The Amazon legal teams does not represent that. I'm sure if you talk to attorneys in Amazon legal or any Amazon staff that work in Amazon legal, they could tell you if you go to an event and Amazon legal is there, which has happened. A couple of events that I've been to, I've talked to them. They can tell you that that's not how this works. It's propaganda, it's misinformation, and it's done out of self-interest. It's really damaging to do these things if it's a compliance case that boils down to maybe removing some backend keywords from your flat files or getting some supporting testing documentation, testing meaning your products pass regulatory exams and tests, but focusing on what specific team at Amazon, whether it's my former teams, whether it's compliance teams, maybe it's a review manipulation case. So you're talking about product review abuse teams and the enforcement guys at Amazon that aren't necessarily working on legal cases, right? If they're the ones who are reading your appeal, what good is it to have all these legal references, even legal citations? We still see letters on law firm letterhead going into like my former teams that have nothing to do with that when it comes to review abuse, review manipulation. And on top of that, the appeals themselves sometimes cite case law. And it's all off base, off topic. It's fluff. The more fluff and irrelevant content you have in an appeal, the more likely you are to be ignored. I think the biggest complaint we get from sellers who, for whatever reason, hired attorneys or legal consultants for non-legal appeals before they come knock on our door, the biggest complaint is no one's responding to us. No one's telling us why the appeals are rejected, or they just get a very boilerplate answer from either the law firm, Davis, Wright, Tremaine, or from Amazon Legal. It's just a generic letter that says, look, we read the letter from your attorney. This has nothing to do with us. We're not reinstating your account. You need to appeal it through Seller Central. Again, often after 3 or 4 weeks have passed, they either get that message or they get no response, or they get a response saying legal is going to keep it until such time as they deem it necessary to respond. And in the meantime, you're taking all these other Amazon teams, Amazon management, maybe some execs out of the equation. You're pushing them to the side in favor of pursuing a legal avenue that's been sold to you as a panacea approach for whatever problem you have, using misbegotten notions of a legal appeal as a stronger appeal. Again, self-serving propaganda. Don't fall for that. They're counting on your gullibility when they give you this kind of sales pitch. Intellectual property issues, whether you're on the receiving end of it or you're making complaints against another seller, another brand, perhaps, of violating your IP, of course, intellectual property issues are legal in nature. That's not what we're talking about here. That doesn't mean we haven't seen terrible advice from attorneys on intellectual property matters, because a lot of the attorneys running around the Amazon space, of course, have no intellectual property background or expertise of any sort. They're just kind of doing the general practitioner approach, the way your doctor might try to diagnose you for something that ends up being a surgical matter for a physical ailment. Same thing here, right? This pipeline that's being created to legal, I'm still kind of trying to figure out within legal why they're tolerating all this nonsense and gibberish appeals that don't have anything to do with legal. My impression so far is that legal likes to stay kind of behind the scenes. They don't like to stick up for themselves publicly. They don't see a lot of mudslinging on LinkedIn or TikTok or wherever, Instagram, about how terrible Amazon legal is when sellers send them appeals that are ignored. None of that seems to be happening. And so they seem to be kind of just staying with their status quo of ignoring things or rejecting things. But that doesn't mean that you haven't wasted appeals. It doesn't mean you haven't wasted time you could have been selling. Your acing could have been back up if you hadn't taken these wrong paths, listened to the wrong advice, made these erroneous choices simply because you thought you were being guided by an expert. Understand as well, in terms of who refers who for different legal issues, different compliance issues, a lot of the agencies or service providers or consultants or whatever they are doing the referring, they don't understand the core issues themselves. They don't have their own expertise in those compliance issues or those legal issues, or sometimes even those Amazon policy issues. I've seen agency head service providers, consultants speaking on issues, sometimes in person, sometimes just on YouTube videos or online forums, talking about enforcement inside Amazon on certain types of policies. Again, the review manipulation example is the best, but also intellectual property issues. A lot of lay people don't understand the intricacies of different types of intellectual property violations that one brand may commit, how much they can defend themselves against accusations of IP claims, which again, if you're using a general practitioner, non-IP trained attorney to address those issues for you, things will be missed or incorrect info will show up in your appeal. Say you're doing a dispute of an intellectual property complaint that wasn't legitimate and you hired an attorney to do it. Well, on the surface, that kind of makes sense in terms of from a diagnostic perspective. And maybe they do even have some past experience dealing with notice takedown teams in Amazon or with other types of Amazon suspensions. But if that were the end of the story, we would not be seeing so many mistakes in the legal letters themselves. Not only are they not sent to the right place, but they don't even contain verifiable information or accurate information. And from what I'm seeing, the brands aren't really questioning any of it. They're just kind of accepting it as a rubber stamp of somebody sent me to this attorney. They said they were good. I took their word for it. I took it all at face value. I didn't fact check or double check any of it. We're kind of living in an age on Amazon where you can't afford to make these mistakes because your competitor will eat your lunch for you. If you get a listing taken down that could have been reinstated in a couple of days, and instead you blew 2-3 weeks or 2-3 months pedaling in circles on your Amazon legal bicycle, this time and place doesn't allow for failures like that that also permit you to keep up with your competition. You will lose sales rank. You'll lose your entire account potentially if you start handling it in illicit ways or make false accusations. If you've done any of these mistakes, and every day we hear from people who have hired people, they're not even sure if they are lawyers, to do these things, to send these boilerplate messages, it all looks like kind of ChatGPT nonsense to me. I know it looks like that to you too. I can't tell you how many sellers we've talked to who said, you know what? I knew I shouldn't have hired this person, or I knew I shouldn't have sent this in, and I did anyway. Or even hiring some of these lawyers for full account suspensions. No one's getting responses to those appeals. The biggest complaint I get is the lack of response. And if they do get a response, as I said earlier, it's a one-pager from Amazon's law firm or sometimes from legal saying, this isn't us. We don't see what your argument is. don't hassle us with this. So I know there's a lot of you out there who have experienced it. Hopefully you came out on the other side okay. If you're still dealing with it, let us know. Find me. You can always email me, Chris at eCommerce Chris, and show me some particulars and let me know what's going on. We're happy to help.